So look, to my listeners, to my audience, thank you for all the support, all the comments, all the likes, all the subscriptions. It means the world and it keeps me going. And I want to take a few seconds here to kind of share a few things with you guys, especially if you're young trainers in the game. So about maybe a month and a half ago, maybe a little bit more, I started the show, and I just wanted to have sincere conversations with trainers. There's so much we could learn from each other when we discuss our methods, our philosophies, and dog training methods change over time. You guys are going to love my guest today. I guarantee it. And you're going to want to go back and search all of the kind of solo videos he did. His name is Chad Mackin. So that's his YouTube page. Super easy to find. And man, the gentleman he's candid, he's authentic. And one of the favorite things about Chad that I've learned, because the conversation here it's an hour and a half, but I do a lot of research behind the scenes to learn kind of what is this person about, what is their philosophy. And the way you speak about your evolution of dog training, my favorite video that you put out was the problem with reward-based training. And I click on that video and I'm thinking, all right, here's another guy's going to go off on purely positive. And it wasn't that at all. It was Chad's evolution as a dog trainer. So if you're a young trainer, I urge you to consider starting a podcast. The benefit is going to be for you to learn from so many amazing people in the industry. So without further ado, Chad Mackin, welcome to the Doggy Stoic Podcast.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I appreciate the intro. Yeah, I remember making that video. I got a lot of flack from that video, by the way.
No, you didn't.
Some people did not like it at all.
What?
Well,
what did they like?
So here's the problem, right? When we talk about the balanced training community, we're not talking about a community. We're talking about several fractured communities that sort of all agree on one subject or one idea, and that is that sometimes, occasionally, some more than others, we agree that it is important, valuable, and useful to use some form of aversion as our training protocol. So if we want to talk quadrants, we're willing to use those ugly quadrants of positive punishment and negative reinforcement. But that's it. That's all we really share. And we've made that an identity. As a whole, the balanced trainers have made that thing as an identity, right? And there's a far end of that spectrum that is just terrible. Like when I came up, like one of my mentors, Dick Russell, he was so proud that he used food when he was training dogs. Like I met the guy, he was old. Like he was in his late 60s, early 70s. I don't remember exactly, but he was an old man already. He'd been in the game a long time. Like he was doing gun dog training before they had e-collars to do gun dog training, right? So he would tell stories about the old days when they didn't have the e-collars. And he used to say, when I started training, you'd be sooner caught swearing in church than giving a dog a cookie. Right? It was considered, using food was considered like garbage. It was considered trash. And those people are still out there. And you still have people in the balanced community who think you cannot solve a behavior problem without using those two quadrants. And
one of your lines was reward-based training is hard. Compulsion training is much easier. Reward-based training takes more skill, more energy, and more patience. And
yes.
You got a lot of pushback for that?
Well, I got a lot of pushback because basically some people thought I was saying that if they don't do reward-based training, they're hacks. And I guess I kind of was. Like if you're not working to motivate the dog, if your whole ethos is because I said so, then yeah, I kind of think you're a hack. Like if you don't care about how the dog feels about what you're doing, if you don't care about producing a dog that actually enjoys the work, enjoys working with you and for you, then you're kind of using training as an excuse to impose your will on another being, as opposed to having a conversation, as opposed to creating a better life for the dog. Right? Because I said so is a terrible justification for anything. And if you were a kid and your parents told you that, like mine did, you know that. Right? So there were a few balance trainers who kind of just came at me basically the idea was, so you should do everything with cookies. No, I didn't say that. I never said that. I have never said you shouldn't use those ugly quadrants. I've never said you shouldn't use compulsion. To me, it's always been about like, all right, I will say this: when I was in a forum a long time ago when we're still doing email forums before we had like social media per se. Uh, I made the comment that if I believed I could get everything I wanted from a dog without ever causing them a moment of discomfort or displeasure, 100% that's what I'd be doing. 100%. Because why, if I love dogs, why else? Why would I do anything else?
What I got from the video was you started in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
That's 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
And to be candid, to say like this is how my training journey has evolved. We were walking with my young trainer who works here. We were having that same conversation. I said, I think it's such a skill when I hear from people who evolve their methodology as they get more information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like back in that day, so my first dog training book was The Keeler Method of Dog Training.
Okay. That's
And
pressure
that
based. That's escape avoidance. Or
yeah. It's now I have a very complex relationship with that book.
sure, I'm sure.
Because on the one hand, it was my foundation and it got
Yeah.
me through a lot of hard cases. And the book has some legitimately terrible moments, right? Some legitimately terrible ideas and it's stuff that like you read it, you go, ooh, that doesn't sound very nice. Like that doesn't sound very good. Um, and it gets a lot of uh, fair criticism because of those sections. On the whole, though, the system is very well organized and very well structured. And the thing I will say about it is this: it is unique in the dog world because if you take somebody who has no dog training experience and you give them that book to read and they diligently practice in the book to the best of their understanding, they will come out with a better behaved dog. Like it won't be great, it won't be flashy, it won't look like, Michael Ellis or Ivan trained it or anything like that, but it's going to come out they're going to come out happier with their dog. Now, is the dog going to be happier with life? It depends on how they interpret some of those passages. Because what I discovered is just reading the book with no feedback from anybody who actually was deep in the method, I misinterpreted a lot of it. And later on, I met a guy named Tony Anchetta, who actually worked with Bill Keeler, lived in his house for a while, and continued his work after Bill passed away, and continued to work after Bill's son Dick passed away. And I found out from him that I misinterpreted a lot of the book. And it was a lot softer than it came off in the book. Like in person, it was a lot softer than it came off in the book because I got to see Tony work. Um, that said, the book is still based on this premise that every dog is trying to get away with disobedience, and our job is not let them do that. So it's an adversary relationship from jump. And what happened is about 10% of the dogs I was working with at that time, they thrived in that system. Like
Sure.
you'd see that motivated, yeah, let's do this. Like they got excited about training all this. About 10%, but 90% had this flat, disaffected look. They looked like they were doing their math homework. They looked like I looked when I was doing my math homework.
Literally.
Right? They hated this. They didn't want anything to do with it, and that kind of made me sad. I wanted them all to look like those other dogs, and I saw more and more people. So we used to have a training floor that we would rent out. So people who were preparing for their AKC obedience or whatever competition we're training for, they'd pay us some money and they come use our training floor for an hour. And so I watched all these different trainers work. And I saw all the gimmicky stuff that people were doing, hiding food in their mouth and spitting it out and stuff like that, which AKC trainers to this day I think still love. And some even sport dog trainers are using that trick. And I get it because they're not appearing to look at your eyes, but they're looking at your mouth. I get all of that. And I know I was offended by that at first because I was still in that old school mindset, like that was like swearing in church. You just didn't do it. But I eventually started to notice that their dogs were way happier than mine and they were doing things that were flashier and better than mine. And so I started learning to explore using food and I started learning how to soften things. My big thing was not putting too much pressure on dogs. That was my big thing for the longest time. Like, can I do this with less pressure? Can I convince the dog with less aversion? And I wasn't very good with food because no one had taught me how to use food. This is one of the things that the evolution that's really interesting is, you know, most at that time, most balance trainers had no clue how to use food. We thought we were using food. We thought we were food based. Like we thought, yeah, give the dog a little cookie here and there. We didn't really understand the complexities of using food in a productive way, right? We didn't really know how to leverage food to motivate the dog. What we were doing was just saying it's the same thing when you watch a lot of these people praise their dogs, right? Like, here's a little thing that I've noticed is anybody who says my dog doesn't need food, he works only for praise. Those dogs are always wearing prong collars. Always. It's not only for praise, right? If it was only for praise, you wouldn't need a prong collar. You wouldn't need a leash at all, right?
Is it that there's it's hard to put into words, but with food and with praise is there's a bit of emotion and action behind the food and the praise, right? It's not just flat food. It's not just flat praise. It's like genuinely trying with your body and your mannerisms to show the dog that you're proud of them. And the food is just sort of an extension of you versus like you
But
go to a restaurant, the waiters come in to bring your meal. How he delivers that meal will have an impact on your experience. I always think
mhm,
about it that way. So it's
I
like
like that. Yeah.
if he just plops the food on the table, it could be the best piece of steak ever. You're going to be sitting there wondering like, what's going on? Versus like, you guys got the best item on the menu. You're going to
hmm
love this steak. Let me know what you think, right?
hmm
That's kind of how I think about the food, and the food is just an extension of the entire experience of the restaurant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I always say, like you get a choice of three different rooms. You got a room with your favorite people in it. You got a room with your favorite food in it. And you got a room with your favorite people and your favorite food. Which
Wow.
room do you pick?
Are you there, Chad?
I mean, maybe I don't know if I'm your favorite person or not, but
We'll
but
see.
but like but like that's the thing is like the other thing is when I learned the difference because I didn't know this for a long time. I was trained dogs for a long time before I realized before anyone told me there's a difference between rewarding and reinforcing, right? And so like something can be rewarding but not reinforcing. And the difference for any listeners who aren't deep into the dog nerd stuff, difference is reinforcement makes you more likely to do a thing in the future. Rewarding just means yeah, I like it, right? So the example I usually give for that is my grandfather. Um, I never saw him walk past a payphone without sticking his finger in the coin slot to see if there was a nickel in there or whatever, right? Every time, if it was within arm's range, he would just walk by and stick his finger in each one of those coin returns. Like younger people don't know this, don't understand this thing about payphones, but like sometimes people would overpay for their phone call and hang up the phone, and it would give them the change after you hung up the phone. So people would just walk away, and you could sometimes find a nickel. Like it would never be more than a nickel, right?
He
But my
probably collected
grandfather.
like $1.50 his whole life.
Yeah, probably. But also, he was alive during the Great Depression, so everybody who lived through the Great Depression was super thrifty as adults. Like they just became very they just learned not to waste, right? Um, but you know what he wouldn't do? He wouldn't cross the street to check a payphone, right? He wouldn't go out of his way. If it was within reach, he would try it, but he wouldn't make an effort. So it was rewarding and mildly reinforcing, but not reinforcing enough to make him work for it, right? And so when you give a dog 5 pieces of kibble in a 30-minute training session, you're probably not reinforcing much. It's not consistent enough to build a habit. Are you taking some of the edge off the training session, making the dog feel better about it? Yeah. So it's valuable, but it's not motivating him. And when you see people praise their dogs, right? This is the one that kills me is people go, the dog will do something, go, that's a good boy. And that's the extent of it. Like nobody likes a 3-second massage, right? Like that's not even rewarding. It's actually disappointing, right? If you're gonna, the problem with praise as a motivation, because a lot of dogs are, I think, are more motivated by praise than food. A lot of dogs are more motivated by play than food, right? And so like for example, I know you had Jay Jack on. He's a big play guy, and he's one of my best friends in the world. He's an amazing trainer, an amazing human being. Like, I got nothing but good things to say about that guy. Here is where we differ the most. I like food. He likes play. Like that's the big difference. And but interestingly enough, a little side note. when we were in Australia together, we did a tour of 3 cities in Australia a few years back. And on the first day, we'd split off working spots. Like I do one, he'd do one, I do one, he'd do one, right? And at the end of the first day, we were in Sydney, and somebody goes, "How do you two get along so well when you work so different?" And Jay's response was immediate. He goes, "What do you mean we're doing the exact same thing?
For sure.
It just looks different." But
It's just an extension of you, right? Because at
yeah,
the end of the day, like, and I guess I want to go back to not the Keeler method, but the point that you made that dogs are trying to kind of disobey or trying
hmm
to be the adversarial. I mean,
hmm
obviously, there's kind of strong-willed dogs. I mean, there's strong-willed
hmm
people as well. But I think if you train enough dogs and you get in the hundreds, you see that's not really the case at all. So at some point, you have to admit that these dogs are bred to be cooperative with you.
hmm
You sometimes have to
yeah,
just see the light at the end of the tunnel and be like, these dogs just want a relationship with me. They look to us as a leader, a friend, a coach. What I would say coach is a good, and
hmm
they want to have fun. They want to feel safe and secure. And they just want to be there as, they want to do things with you. That is
hmm
my experience. So with the strong willed dogs, maybe a bit more pressure to show them that they can't disobey is needed. But then it turns to what does that dog truly enjoy? And how can we do those things together? And if for you that means kind of playing food games, I love play because I grew up an athlete. So
hmm
I love tug. Like for me, it's
hmm
so for me, I'm not even talking about I enjoy that. So I
sure,
love that
sure,
competitive nature. I like playing remember tag or capture the flag or
hmm
man.
yeah,
I kind of miss those days where like, one side of the neighborhood is here, one side of the neighborhood here, we go play capture the flag. I miss those days as a kid. So I kind of try to recreate that experience with the dogs. And I
yeah.
find training is just like kind of a byproduct of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, the value I have in food is, and I do make them chase it. A lot of my training games are chase me to catch the food, right?
There you go.
Um, but the thing is, here's what I like about food and why I tend to use it. And again, no shade on anybody who likes to use tug. Like I said, I respect Jay as much as anybody on this planet, and he is a tug guy, a play guy, right? And by the way, he's the first person I call when I run into trouble with a dog. Like he's the first guy I go, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I got others, but he's my first stop because we're so aligned in the way we think, right? Not that he's necessarily the best trainer I know, but we think our philosophy is the same. We apply it differently, right? But what I like about food is it's fast, right? Again, like praise, play needs to have some duration to be meaningful for the dog, right? So if I have a 20-minute session with a dog, I'm gonna get more reps in with significant reinforcement if I'm using food than if I'm using play, right? And it just so to me, it's just an economic thing. And also, when dogs are stressed, there's this hierarchy of stress,
Yep.
right? As dogs get stressed, things go away. The first thing that goes away is play. The second thing is non-existential food, right? So for some dogs that are too stressed to play, they'll still take that non-existential food. So that gives me an in with dogs who aren't ready, who are a little uncomfortable with the situation. So those are my two reasons. They're practical, not necessarily personal. But like I said, that's what I was saying. All of these things with food, one piece of food is often very reinforcing for a dog, especially if it's timed correctly, right? But also, I can give a small handful; and it doesn't take up much more time, right? Um, However, with praise or play, there's a duration that needs to be in. If I'm going to use praise to reward my dog, I tell my clients 7 to 10 seconds minimum of praise. I mean, meaningful affection. Dick Russell used to say it's got to start here and flow out of your arms, right? It's got to. You can't be just that's a good dog. Is you got to really mean it, and the dog has to know you mean it. Um, so
Chad, is there a case that comes to mind that you recently called Jay about, or uh, maybe like could you describe a challenging dog that you had that you might have wanted to consult Jay on, and then what was kind of like what did you do, or what were the patterns you were seeing in that dog that made him challenging or her challenging?
yeah, I'll tell you it's not the most recent one, but it's the most interesting one
Okay.
to me, right?
Sure.
Because I'm not thinking of anything really recently where I've done that. But I know I have. It's just not. It's not. Uh, it's not forefront in my brain. But there's one. I had this dobe came in, And he came in largely because he was chasing cars and redirecting, right? And so
Redirecting on the owner out of
redirecting
frustration.
on the owner, yeah. And so now normally I don't deal with redirection. In other words, I'm soft enough with the leash that I don't put dogs in a position where they redirect. Like, oftentimes redirection is a handling issue, not a training issue.
Yep.
Excuse me. And so I didn't think too much of it. Like, this was the last dog that has redirected on me. And this was a couple years back, right?
Sure.
But so he comes in for a board and train, and the first thing I do with my board and train is I just take him for a walk. I don't worry about training. I put a slip lead on him, and we go
Me
for a
too.
walk.
Me too.
And I'm doing a little bit of leash work, but I'm not really trying to teach them anything. I'm doing enough leash work so I don't get dragged around the right
Sure.
the block or whatever. But we just go for a walk. Let's just go explore the area. Let's do something that is bonding and joyful and positive for both of us, and get to know each other, right? And so a car drives by and the dog lunges. I go, and just barely tap the leash. And he turns, and it's a half-hearted redirect, but it's a redirect, right? Like,
Yeah.
he could have put teeth on me if he wanted to. He didn't want to, but he was definitely expressing frustration. And so I did, like, I gave him a little bit of a harder correction, go, hey, we don't do that. And that amped him up a little bit more. And I said, okay, we're in the wrong place here. I'm not going to walk him outside until I have a handle on this or have a better plan for this. So I take him back inside. And my thinking at the time was, this dog needs some biological fulfillment. He wants to chase the cars. He wants to play. Let's burn that out and then take him back outside, right? But this dog was so damn polite, he would not play any kind of competitive game with me. And I could tell he wanted that fight aspect of play, but he wouldn't. And I did all my tricks. I tied a tug onto a rope, a long rope, and was dragging around the room to get him to chase it. He would not engage with me. As soon as he realized that I was at the other end of that line, he would not engage. Flirt balls, nothing, like nothing. And like, and that's so my first thought is, well, he's got to know me a little bit more. He's got to trust me a little bit more. So I went on a few days just trying to build that rapport so that he would trust me enough to play with me. It never happened. And it actually never did happen. So I finally called Jay. I'm like, hey, man, I don't know what to do. I know this dog needs to play. I know he needs to fight, but I can't get him to fight with me. And he goes, remember that fighting means overcoming resistance. I'm like, okay, yes. He goes, do you have a puzzle feeder? Yeah, I got tons of them. He goes, give him a puzzle feeder because that's fight. He's overcoming resistance. He's fighting with the puzzle, not fighting with you. And so I got out a puzzle, a feeding puzzle. I gave it to him and he loved it. He went nuts over it, right? So that day, later on that day, I grabbed my feeding puzzle and a folding chair, and I went out and sat on the sidewalk with my puzzle. Every time a dog came by, I put the puzzle down and he started chasing, fighting with the puzzle. And then the next day, I didn't bring the puzzle out and he was fine, right? Just literally, I gave him that biological expression and he never chased a car again.
What do you think changed in his? Because we'll get to one of the points: emotions drive behavior. People used to say consequences drive behavior.
Hmm.
What do you think changed?
Well, I think there was some biological fulfillment. Like he started, so he had learned what's the habit loop, right? I see a dog, I see a car, I chase it, I get a little bit of fight, either chasing the car or with the leash or with my owner, right? And so I found a way for him to express that drive. In like, most dogs don't want to be bad. They're bad because they want to do something that we're not allowing them to do, right? In other words, people will be rebellious. People will say, I'm not going to do that just because you told me to. I don't think dogs ever do that. I think dogs are going to go, like, I always say that there's three reasons a dog won't do what you want them to do. The first reason is they don't understand. They're really not clear on what's expected. The second reason is there's some sort of impediment in the way of them doing it. Maybe it's a mental issue, like they're too overblown, overstimulated, exhausted, frightened, whatever. Or maybe it's physical. Maybe they're not sitting because their leg hurts and they don't want to bend it, right? And the third reason is they lack proper motivation, right? And then I always end it by saying none of those are the dog's fault. Not one of those things is the dog's fault. So it's not the dog's job to come to me motivated. It's my job to motivate them. It's not the dog's job to come to me understanding. It's my job to make it clear. It's not the dog's job to tell me he's got an impediment. He can't. He doesn't have the language to do that. It's my job to figure out if there is one and remove it. If the dog is overstimulated, over emotional, It's my job to help them regulate so that they can do the thing. So it's nothing that happens in a training session is ever the dog's fault, right? It's all we have the thumbs, we have the brains, we're in control of the conversation, right? So in this case, he was telling me, I've got this intense desire to engage in this behavior, and I don't know any other way to express that behavior. I gave him a legitimate way to express that behavior and took the need to do it the other way.
If you actually analyze it, he had a really mild desire to express the behavior, but it came off as intense because it was a redirection on the owner. But like you said in the beginning, he could have bit you, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And giving him a puzzle feeder was plenty of stimulation,
Mm-hmm.
where like another dog who really did have intensity would just destroy the whole puzzle.
Right.
So
In which case, I'd play a more vigorous game with them. Right.
Exactly. Great.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Why I enjoy this podcast so much is, look, Chad, I didn't come through like the whole like reading books on dog training. I just got a dog. I wanted to go out in nature and have fun. So I missed out on all the social media arguments over which is the right way. But what I love about these podcasts is the nuance of how to use food, play, etc. versus like, I just find so much of the internet arguing over the tools, not the methods, and not even the context of using the method, right? Like,
right.
Hey, there's this Doberman that appears super, agitated, frustrated, but he's actually a sweetheart. He just wanted a few things to kind of like bump with his nose and be all silly about, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a tendency, and going back to how we started this with the why reinforcement or reward-based training is more difficult. It's because it requires you to be more creative. It requires you to think more from the dog's point of view. Like the instinct of human beings, because we're primates, the instinct is to go make it hurt and they won't do it again. Like I want you to do what I want you to do, and I can make you hurt if you don't. That is the human instinct. Like we get mad, we hit the TV when it doesn't work, right? Like we are violent creatures by nature. Like just smash shit until it gets better, right? Can we cuss on this podcast?
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
I'm gonna redirect on you, Chad. Nah.
Okay. like that's our habit. And so with that Dobe, a lot of trainers would have done that. You don't do that to me. You don't do that. Like I'm going to bring forth a swift and terrible consequence for that, which is something I used to teach. I used to teach if your dog redirects on you, if the dog comes up the leash at you, something terrible must happen so they know they can't do that, right? That's a very primate way of thinking. And that is like, I used to be a dominance-based trainer. I could have written any one of Caesar's books at one point in my career. Like I used to be very much into that mindset. And so I took that, if the dog showed a tooth to me, I took that as aggression and I treated it as if the dog had crossed some very important threshold. I did a lot of terrible shit. Because that's what I was taught was supposed to be, the way it was supposed to be done. I didn't know any better. And so there's a lot of balanced trainers out there who would have taken that dog and they would have put a ton of pressure on him for that. And it probably would have worked. Like they would have solved the owner's problem, but the dog would be still left with his problem.
Can I ask you a question? I mean, you brought Caesar up. Why do you? So you mentioned him, the dominance-based trainer. Talk to me about like his polarization, because Caesar, in a lot of ways, put the industry on a map, and he has the psychology center where there is a lot of fulfillment and fun for the dogs as well. Why do you think he's so polarizing in this industry?
Well, so okay. I got a lot of not inside dirt, but I've got some history that most people don't know.
Please.
So before this Dog Whisperer came out, season 1, the National Geographic sent out a press package, and they sent it they were blissfully unaware of the vitriol in the dog training world. And they sent out a press package to all these dog magazines, not realizing that most dog magazines were leaning to the force-free side of things, or actually very heavily. And the Whole Dog Journal got a hold of this thing, and they sent out an email to all of their readership. And they said, this show is coming out on National Geographic, and it's terrible, and we want to stop it. And they started this like letter writing campaign to get the show canceled before it ever started. Now, the IACP
cancel culture, they love it.
Well, I mean, yeah, but this was before, that wasn't a term yet. Like cancel culture wasn't a term yet, but at that time you really couldn't get a book published about compulsive methods. They kind of had um locked themselves into all the publishing houses, and it was a dark time for balance training, to be honest with you. Like, people act like now it's really bad. It was a lot harder then.
What year was this, if you could just like approximate? 2008, 2007?
You sound are a bit early, maybe 2000, maybe 2006, 2007, somewhere along there. Like,
Cool.
it was because I think I joined the IACP in 2004, so it could have been as early as 2005. I'm not entirely sure,
But that
but
general era, the
yeah,
MySpace era for you guys watching, TRL, MySpace,
Yahoo groups
Yahoo
was the
groups. Wow.
yeah, yeah, because that's where this all unfolded for me, right? So someone on the IACP
Yahoo group.
Yahoo group
Chad
comes
Mackin
out,
aging himself now.
yeah, comes out with that this, and we all start this. None of us knew who he was, but we knew he was pissing off the right people, so to speak. So we all wrote a counter letter writing campaign. The IACP made sure Caesar got on the air, which is why he's always been friendly to that organization, right? The IACP came to his back. We didn't know who he was. And I remember Captain Haggerty, who was a legend in the dog world. He's passed away for some time, but he's one of the founders. Like, uh, he said, I remember on that list, he said, I met Caesar and he's full of shit, like all good dog trainers, right? And that was all we needed. We mobilized and we got the show on the air. Um, uh, and so he was polarizing before he started. And one of the things that was in the Whole Dog Journal email, because someone forwarded it to the group, so I read the whole thing. That it said, and the worst part is Caesar's methods appear to work. And
Appear is underlined.
yeah, like so the thing is was this was the thing what they had been saying up until the point the force-free trainers had this talking point that compulsion-based training doesn't work, right? And as long as they could keep compulsion-based training off the television or off the internet where people couldn't see it, people could take them at their word. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The reason why they don't say that anymore is there's too much proof that it does. Now they had to shift their argument to it's not fair, it's not kind, it's not like there's better ways to do that. And for the most part, I agree with them that a lot of the compulsion training I see, actually anything that I consider compulsion training, I think is bad training. Let me be very clear about that. Like, I don't mean using compulsion, I mean compulsion based training. Like, that should be, my belief is that should be the smallest percentage of what you do with most dogs. There will be exceptions, but that should be the smallest amount of what you do.
We'll define that for the audience in just a few seconds, but I'd like you to finish on the
Okay.
IACP and getting Caesar on the air.
So yeah, so we got him on the air, and we started watching. I started watching the show when it came out, and I really quickly, by third episode, I was like, I'm done with this, like, because now, not to bash Caesar, the man has a pretty good read on dogs, pretty good. He's got really good timing. There's a lot of benefits there, but I believe he succeeds in spite of his philosophy of dogs, not because of it. Like, if he learned more about cooperation, he would be an amazing trainer. But he fits everything in this dominance box. Like, everything becomes the dog is having a dominance issue, and and so here's the thing also about it. I don't know, maybe at the Dog Psychology Center, Caesar's a really great trainer. Maybe good training makes for bad television. It just does, right?
Boring.
Television requires conflict.
Yeah.
Right. And good training shouldn't have a lot of conflict. It should be smooth and fluid, and like it should, like, the best training I've ever seen doesn't look like dog training. Like, there's some trainers, you get them out there and they just start walking a dog around and suddenly the dog is doing better and you don't see what's happening. That's amazing. And but it makes for very terrible television, right? So anyway,
I'd like to say two points on that. So one is they're both from Jay Jack, actually. So we went to a seminar in Nashville, and he had a great line. He's like, I prefer inevitability over intensity. So in some of those shows, not all, some of the dogs are really intense, but some of them, I always ask the question, why doesn't Caesar just have a leash on one of these dogs? And it doesn't actually need to be as intense as it looks. Like, sometimes you could just inevitably take the dog away from some situations and you don't even need much pressure at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not with all, but with some. So Jay Jack said inevitability over intensity, and I like that. And I'd say
Yep.
most dogs fall in the category of just use the leash and kind of show them a little bit what to do. You could put that in the bucket of compulsion or negative reinforcement, but it's just tiny bits of pressure relative to. The second thing Jay said, someone asked, I think maybe it was me, what's the difference between compulsion and negative reinforcement? And he said, all negative reinforcement starts as compulsion, but it shouldn't stay there. And what he means is compulsion is pressure until the dog complies. But eventually that behavior should turn to, I'm avoiding the pressure because I've learned to escape it through a command. Do you want to add to that, kind of poke holes in that? Any thoughts on that?
So one of the areas that Jay and I
You're allowed to.
disagree philosophically is Jay is very, very, very binary. Like everything goes into a category. He likes very structured. This is the way it is. And this is like, so one of our long-standing disagreements is about whether dogs are rapid switching between, like, so you have a dog that's in approach avoidance. Like
Okay.
Jay will tell you that his seeking system and his fear and panic systems are switching back and forth rapidly. Like he's going a little bit of fear and panic, a little bit of seeking, a little bit of fear. Like the two are switching on and off rapidly.
Chad, give me an example. Like simplify, go 101 on me, or maybe 201 on me. Like what is that?
Okay, so like the four blue ribbon emotions: seeking, fear, rage, and panic. Right? These are the four.
Fear, rage, and panic.
Yeah, these are the four basic emotional systems according to Dr. Jaak Panksepp, affective neuroscience. This is his sort of thing. These are four emotions that all mammals have access to at all stages in life. There's three others. There's nurture, there's lust, and there's play, which are not necessarily available to all mammals at all stages of life. Like some of them only appear at certain life stages. Like most mammals don't play into adulthood, for example. So the four blue ribbons: seeking, fear, rage, and panic. All mammals can experience these at all points in life, right? I'll run through them real quick. Seeking is curiosity. Seeking is about solving puzzles, obtaining resources, maintaining resources. It's the only positive of those four blue ribbon emotions. It's the only one that is a net positive that is enjoyable. Fear is about physical safety. Like I'm worried about falling off this cliff, or I'm worried about this dog biting me in the face, or whatever. Panic is social. Panic is about feeling social pressure, social shame. So like uh fear of public speaking is a panic response, not a fear response, for example, right? And then rage is the frustration system. That's when you're trying to do something and you can't get it done, and this is where all anger comes from, is being blocked or impeded on something you're trying to accomplish, right? So those are your four blue ribbon emotions. Now the big thing to understand about this for me is that seeking or curiosity is the natural antidote to fear and to panic.
Curiosity is the natural antidote to fear and panic.
Yeah. So like the more curious you are, the less frightened you are. The more frightened you are, the less curious you are. Right? So I don't try to build a dog's courage. What I try to do is I try to strengthen their seeking system.
Awesome. Okay.
Right? So anyway, so approach avoidance. The example I use is you got a eighth grader at his first dance, and he sees his crush across the gym, and he wants to go say hi. And then that's the seeking system, right? I'm going to go say hi. And then he looks across the gym. He starts to get nervous. The panic system comes in. He goes, ooh, what if she rejects me? What if her friends don't like me? And he goes back and he goes, this war, right? Now, Jay would say what's happening is the seeking system activates, then the panic system activates, then the seeking system activates, then the panic system activates. That's the way he frames it. And we've had this discussion a couple of times. To me, those two are both active at the same time and they're warring, right? Now, from a practical point, does that matter? Like from a practical point of view, it's irrelevant, right? We have these different theories. We're going to apply them the same way. It's going to look the same. But this is where Jay likes everything in its categorical box, right? So his definitions are generally far more absolute than mine. And so there's a long way to say that I don't know that I agree that all negative reinforcement begins as compulsion. To me, compulsion to me has to do with interfering with the dog's agency, right? Like if somebody goes, come on, Come on, you know you want to. Come on. That might feel like compulsion, but they're not interfering with your agency. They are bugging you until you give up, right? That doesn't feel like, to me, compulsion is like, you're gonna do it or I'm gonna hurt you, right? Or I'm going to grab you and make you do it. Like, like if I grab your hand and stop hitting yourself, that's compulsion. I'm compelling you to hit yourself against your will, right? So to me, compulsion is when you override the dog's sense of agency with pressure. So like if I just block a dog with a leash, if I just don't give them enough slack to get to a place, I don't believe that's compulsion. That's setting a boundary. But if I'm dragging them away, that's compulsion, because the dog doesn't have a choice. Or if I'm using overwhelming pressure, if I'm using pain compliance to get them to do something that they otherwise would not do, that to me is compulsion. Um, and for the most part, I'm much more into negotiation. I'm much more into, again, inevitability. Like I do believe in that, but the inevitability, like even that to me feels a little more aggressive than I like. Um, but like, so for example, uh, one of my favorite things to teach, one of my favorite negative markers to teach is a no reward marker, right? And so that what that means is you're not going to succeed. This thing you're trying to do is not going to work. That door you're trying to go through is locked. I'm not mad at you. You're not in trouble. You're just wasting both of our times, right? So, for example, the dog wants to go to something. I lock the leash and I say, just like that.
Yep.
Not, right? I tell people if they keep doing that, they're going to have to say oopsie, because you can't sound threatening and say oopsie at the same time. It's really hard. You can do it. I had one guy try, but, but so it's, and then we block the leash and the dog can't get to it and we wait. We wait. This is the hard part for people. They want to fight with the dog, but you just wait. The dog leans into the leash and you're like, dog's leaning in the leash and you're just, and then the dog finally goes, what do you want? You go, yes, you reward the moment they check in with you. And they go, oh, okay. Means I can't do that, but I can do this. Okay. So it becomes this real cool thing where they immediately stop what they're doing and check back in with you when they hear, right? Now, maybe Jay would consider that compulsion. I don't know. I don't. Right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't consider that.
I would like markers. I would consider a negative reinforcement marker in that scenario.
So, okay, like I would say that, and I've had this discussion before.
Sure.
Like, uh, I don't know if I want to put that into the quadrants.
I understand.
Because I think it's more complex what's happening. Because the lesson is every time I try to go through that door and I hear that word, I can't do it. Right? And that's the point. That thing's not going to work. Right?
But something else good is about to happen if you just kind of check in and
and that's where it gets a little bit shady. Like that's where it gets a little bit shady. And I can see I could argue your point for you. But I'm trying to think of it from the dog's perspective. This thing is not going to work because let's say I have a plate on the ground that's got a steak, and in my hand I have kibble. The dog's still giving up that higher value steak for the kibble because he knows the steak is not going to happen. The inevitability is he's not going to get to that steak. That's the inevitable part. Right. And I think that's more motivating than the food in my hand. The food in my hand just makes it feel a little bit better to give up on the steak.
So why this is actually super topical. I've started to record full length sessions of how I do things. One, it's cool to just like look back and be like, oh, look at the mistakes. I could clarify better here. And the owner's there as well. So I'm working with an aggressive, I wouldn't even call her aggressive, Roddy. And one of the first things that this is lesson 3. So I teach a release command. Okay. And then she loves to play. So put her on like a place bed, elevated surface, just to make it a little easier. Throw the ball. We're building a little impulse control. The first few sessions, we just played. Just play. Lesson 3 was just reverse the order of operations there. And it was put her on a place bed, throw the ball to each other, have like a catch. When she jumps off, it's And when she settles and looks at the owner, release with an okay. Is that negative reinforcement? I don't know, but I think it just makes a lot of sense to the dog. Like, I don't know what quadrant, because I would also call it classical conditioning in the sense of like now she's learning that the actually leads to fun. So like I
Mm-hmm.
would call that a more emotional change in the dog versus the dog having to go and find their own fun.
Yeah, so like that's I mean that's like yeah, that's the problem with the quadrants, right? Is that um they're a real good framework for analyzing stuff, but they're not a perfect framework for analyzing stuff. Like
Not with
there's
emotional beings, right?
yeah, like the whole theory, like so if you look at Skinner's theory, and he's kind of I don't know, I don't think he invented the quadrants. Behaviorism existed before him, but here's something a lot of people don't understand. Like behaviorism is a very specific discipline within behavioral sciences, and it has some very specific premises that it's founded upon. And I think they've changed these to to some extent in relation to modern research, like they've been forced to change things. But even up until Skinner's death, he didn't back off on any of these principles, not really. So the first principle is that thought doesn't affect behavior, but rather is a behavior. Um,
Say that again.
Thought doesn't affect behavior, but it's a behavior in and of itself. In other words, we don't do things because we decide to. We decide to do things because we want to, right? Like we're basically input output machines, right? Like your program, like every being exists at the nexus of their genetics and reinforcement history, which is I actually do agree with that. That's true. Um, but other things that were important is that learning is an event, not a process, and that the only way a dog or an animal can demonstrate learning is by doing a thing. So learning is defined as a change in behavior. So they don't have any room for an intellectual understanding that doesn't produce a change. Like for example, they couldn't explain modern diets. Like we all know eating McDonald's is bad for us.
We still feed our dogs kibble though, don't we?
Yeah, but we still eat McDonald's, right? Like most of us, like nobody goes to McDonald's thinking it's healthy food. Nobody goes, this is a healthy meal that I'm going to have here. But not everybody. There's some people who will never step foot in a McDonald's. But the point is, even though most of all of us know that it's bad, most people will eat it occasionally,
As a
right?
former
Everybody,
as a former Chick-fil-A addict, I changed my thoughts. I changed the hey, this is delicious to this doesn't make me feel good long term. I
yeah. Well,
love
I mean,
love Chick-fil-A.
yeah. But my point is that knowledge does not necessarily equate. Learning doesn't necessarily equate to a change in behavior. Like the behaviorism model is that we only know when a be so here's what happened. Here's what happened. Let me back up a little bit. When behaviorism was created, they had no way to look inside the black box of the animal's brain. The only clue they had to what was going on with the animal was what they did. Right? That was the whole point. Like they couldn't have fMRIs and all this other stuff. They weren't analyzing brain waves and blood chemistry and all these things we can do now to really understand neurotransmitters, all this stuff. What they could measure was changes in behavior. So they stuck to that. Whatever goes on in here is a black box we can't know, and therefore we have no business speculating about it, which is actually a very responsible way for scientists to behave at that time, right? So they learned that they could change animals' behavior through external stimuli, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, both four quadrants, right? And they cataloged that stuff and they did all these experiments to prove how they did that. But in the Skinner box, there was no social contact, there was no social learning in the Skinner box, right? Like you couldn't go, I'm not mad at you, I don't like that. Or I'm happy for you. There was no, so it was strictly rewards and consequences, reinforcements and punishment. That's all it was. But they found they could create really incredibly resilient and robust behaviors with no teaching in the traditional sense by simply allowing the animal, they didn't do a lot of dogs, mostly pigeons, I believe, but letting the pigeon experiment and discover the outcomes, right? If they set the experiment up. And there's a lot that they gave us. They gave us the quadrants. They gave us the ideas of the extinction burst, which is a super valuable tool if you know how to use it in to create positive results. It's huge. They gave us shaping. They gave us, you know, all sorts of stuff. Like they shaped our modern understanding of dog training to a large extent. And I don't mean to completely trash them, but then as science developed, they didn't follow along with those developments. We can now see inside that black box. And actually, Dr. Panksepp sent a letter to Skinner near the end of Skinner's life, basically because we know these things now that you said we couldn't know. We know them now. And will you step in and start to accept that these, will you give us some support by saying that this is a valuable thing? And Skinner's basic response was, I don't know what happens between impulse and stimulus. I'm going to leave that for people who are smarter than me. So he admitted it kind of, but he didn't. My favorite Skinner quote that explains what I consider to be sort of the absurdity of Skinner's um, uh, religious belief about this was when a man says he feels like going for a walk, what he probably means is he feels as he has felt before going for walks in the past. So in his mind, there is no compulsion, no compelling desire to go for a walk, but just to do what he did when he felt this way before. So the walk itself isn't pleasurable. It's repeating the pattern that's pleasurable, right? So there's no, like, humans don't have an innate desire to move, but if they've moved after feeling a certain way, they're going to want to move when they feel that way again, which I think is nonsense. I mean,
They're
I
chasing
think
emotions. Is that a simpler way to put it? They're chasing an emotion, a feeling.
sort of, but I don't know that he'd even say that, because like Skinner didn't really believe that animals had emotions. This is where the whole
Interesting.
consequences drive behavior. Like and even dog trainers for a while, even when Caesar came out, you listen to Caesar, he goes, don't give the dog human emotions. Don't give the dog human emotions. And so far, I always say, well, what emotions do you think are specifically human?
To humans, right? Like joy, is that a human emotion?
I don't
Peace?
think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Like, so
That
what people
zoomies, isn't that kind of our way of, like, when you see a dog happy, like a lot of clients, when they see my Instagram videos and they see their dog having the zoomies or playing with the dog,
Mhm.
the mirror neurons, I think, is like, my dog is feeling joy and bliss, right? Like,
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
yeah. So I have I don't know. Like, I think sometimes zoomies are nervous energy,
For sure, they can be.
right?
Not
Right.
with
So
me.
yeah, not with you. Okay. Yeah. No, that's the thing, is like, um, because I used to, one of the things, I'm having a little bit of dissonance here. I got to work through this for a second, because
Please.
like, because I'm not disagreeing with you. Please understand, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I used to talk about this all the time. This The average dog owner doesn't know the difference between a happy dog and a nervous dog,
Okay.
right? Right. And I used to say, like, they see this, somebody's Jack Russell Terrier is zipping around the room, won't stop, just going on and on and on. And they say, look how happy he is. And I'm like, if that was your kid, you'd take him to the doctor. If your kid was acting that way, you wouldn't go, he's happy. You go, something's wrong with my kid. He can't settle down. Right. And not to say that zoomies are always that, but I think I just want to be very clear that sometimes what we're reading as joy is actually anxious energy. And I suspect you know the difference, but the average dog owner doesn't.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, good, good.
But I think if you see it time and time again, you will be able to decipher whether the dog just got here, it's cooped up, it's surrounded in a new environment, doesn't know what to do, it's curious, and then to let all that frustration and discomfort out, they just start spreading around like maniacs. Versus if you
Hmm.
have the same pattern of behavior day after day after day. I run a dog school. So we
Hmm.
start with like a long nature walk to where it opens up into a field. And
Hmm.
then you, like, I would say, okay, you're free, or go have fun, whatever kind of the
Hmm.
cue is. And then you see the dogs go from, because dogs want to travel in a pack. So it's calm, calm, calm. We're just traveling in a pack to, oh, we get to the place that we've always loved playing together with my friends. And it's kind of recess to, like, oh, it's bliss.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
That's how.
I say, yeah, no, absolutely. When I take my dog off leash and let her run, she's having a blast for, 10, 15 seconds.
For
I think
sure.
duration has something to do with it, and the frequency, like you said, in the context. Like, there's a lot. Yeah. So yeah, we're
And
not
on
gonna
the
we're
way
not.
to that, place you're taking her, she's compliant, she's happy,
Hmm.
she's not like in a state of fear or anxiety or anything like that. She's like, oh, this
Right.
is what I do with dad, who's my best friend. We're going for an on leash walk, and then we're going to go somewhere. We're going to have a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I think in one of
Yeah.
your videos, I'll butcher it, but it was the condition relaxation video you made, where you
Mm-hmm.
talk about like kind of navigating your dog through these different states of arousal. And the walk there to wherever we're going to have fun with my coach, my friend, my dad, is like a low state of curious arousal to,
Mm-hmm.
oh, now we get to play.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, definitely, definitely dogs experience joy though. That's the question, really. Yes,
Yeah.
dogs definitely experience joy. Like that's the thing. So people will say that they talk about complex emotions. Like so they say things like jealousy is a complex emotion, but I don't believe it is. I believe dogs get jealous. I believe every dog owner knows dogs get jealous. Like every dog owner knows dogs get jealous. It's only us dog trainers who get all nerdy about it, saying that's not actually jealousy. It's like, dude, I can remember not that long ago when if you talk to the wrong type of trainer and you said, I love my dog and my dog loves me, they would kind of give you a pat on the head. Go, it's cute that you think that your dog loves you, but what you're actually seeing is uh, the result of selective pressure of us selecting dogs that perform behaviors that we associate with love over centuries, so that their natural behavior looks like love to us, but they're not really feeling anything. We've just selected dogs that make us feel loved, and so it's cute that you think that, but your dog's not capable of love. Dogs don't have those kind of emotions. And then they put dogs in an fMRI and showed them their loved ones, and holy shit, the exact parts of the brain that light up when we see people we love light up when they see people that they don't love, but just perform these love-like behaviors that have been selected through evolution. And they kind of all had to backtrack on that, and now everybody accepts that dogs have a rich emotional life. But this was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This wasn't ancient history. This was, in both of our lifetimes that they had to back off on this. So this is a pretty modern change. And it got to the point where the behaviors couldn't ignore the evidence anymore, which is why they've sort of backtracked on it, which comes back to, you mentioned it earlier, Skinner's rule was consequences drive behavior. Neuroscience's rule is emotion drives behavior. And so I remember I got into this argument one time because I said emotion drives behavior because I was never that deep into Skinner, but I was reading neuroscience and listening to audiobooks about neuroscience. I was really learning this idea that uh, emotion drives behavior, and like nobody in the neuroscience world argues that. Like that's not a controversial take anywhere, but in the dog training world. In the neuroscience world, it's like evolution. It is assumed to be true, and it's the basis that everything else is based on, right? And but behaviors like, no, consequences drive behavior. And I said, so how do consequences change behavior? Reinforcements and punishments work because they change how the dog feels. If they didn't change how they felt, they wouldn't motivate you, right? So it's still, consequences is this level, but emotion is another is a emotion is a deeper level.
I want to ask you,
Right.
try to understand where I'm asking this. Practitionership versus theorist, right? So someone who just like doesn't have any of this, no Skinner, no Pavlov, no nothing, no books, Mowgli,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just grows up with dogs and animals and just feels them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Versus someone who's like trying to learn how to train dogs sort of in a lab, right? And those are probably two spectrums, but like somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Where would your ideal trainer fall? You understand the question?
Yeah, no, I do, and I have to think about it because like, um, I often it's funny because I tried to make a video about this sort of thing the other day, and I didn't like it.
It's
Um,
hard.
uh, well, so here's the thing, like the analogy I use is music. Okay, I grew up like I played my first musical instrument in like fifth grade when I started taking doing trombone in school band, and I hated it. I hated school band. I quit midway through eighth grade, so 2.5 years I played trombone in school band, and I hated every minute of it. And I quit after that was the earliest that my parents would allow me quit after dropping $500 on a trombone for me, right? Like, um, but then I got into playing music with rock bands. Like I played bass, um, so every musician exists at this nexus of the music theory they understand and their ability to play by ear. right? Every musician is somewhere on that spectrum. Like there's no musician that has no theory. You can't tune your instrument if you don't know notes, right? If you don't understand a basic scale and I say play an A and you don't know where an A is, you can't do that, right? So every musician has some theory. And then there are some musicians that are deep, deep, deep in theory and need the notebook. They can't play by ear at all. And there's other musicians who have almost no theory and just play by ear, right? Who's better? I don't know. It depends on the individual, right? Like, but here's the thing. Learning more theory will never make you a worse musician unless,
The theory's wrong.
well, well, that's one, but I'm assuming you're learning good theory. Unless you start to make the theory substitute for intuition. Your theory should inform your intuition, but it should not substitute for your intuition. So you have to, when you're, so like, it's the same, like I can talk on this deep level about neuroscience and the quadrants and the history of dog training. And I can give you these complex things, but when I've got a dog and I'm working with them, I'm not thinking about any of that shit. I'm having a conversation with the dog.
Here's a question then. I'm a 22-year-old trainer. I've been in this for 1 year. How do I tune my intuition?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I have a great answer for you. I think that the easiest answer is, for me, it's awareness, right? You have to be aware of what you're feeling when you're feeling it. Like that's to me the most important thing. Um like if our emotions drive our behavior, and they do, then you must be aware of the emotions that are driving what you do, right? Uh and the more aware you are of those subtle changes in your emotions, the more you're going to start to, because what is intuition? Like let me put it this way. Like Caesar liked to use the word energy. Back to Caesar, right? We're going back to Caesar. Like to use the word energy, and I hate that term. Like, but there's no better term for what he was describing, right?
Can I give you the definition of Google and you'll keep rocking?
Okay.
The ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah. So that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. So look up, when you get done with this, look up the Iowa gambler experiment.
Oh, this is close to heart. That was my vice.
Okay. Well, so what this experiment did, I'm gonna get some of the details wrong because I'm doing it from memory, but it's actually a fascinating experiment on what we call unconscious learning, which is what they're talking about intuition, right? So they had a game that these guys had to play. It was a computer game, but they had two decks of cards that they could pick from, a blue deck and a red deck.
Yep.
And I don't know how many cards were in a hand, but their idea was to collect the highest value hand they could with each, with, right? So, and on the cards, these were not typical playing cards. They had like +5, -2, that sort of. They were just numerical values, addition, subtraction, numerical values, right? Um, Now what they didn't know is that the red decks were a trap. The red decks were largely negatives, small negatives. They had a few big jumps, but mostly small negatives. Whereas the blue deck was more balanced. If they played all blue cards, they would have ended up with higher hands on average through the whole game. But sometimes they play some red cards. They might get like a +10 or some shit like that, right? Um, but here's the thing that's interesting. What they were doing was they had sensors on their palms to detect sweat, which is one of the first places we start to show stress is sweaty palms, right? Um, After a few hands, I don't remember how many. These were going to get messed up. You can look up the numbers, but after X number of hands, their palms would start to sweat before they clicked on the red deck, but it didn't change their play. It took another several hands before they started to actively avoid the red decks, but it took like 50 hands before they could tell you that they were avoiding the red decks. So their body knew that the red decks were a trap before their mind ever did. Their body knew before it changed their behavior, and their behavior changed before their mind knew that their behavior was changing, right? So this is what they call unconscious learning. Like and I think a lot of intuition is that unconscious learning, right? And so if you can start to be aware, if you were aware enough to notice that your palms were starting to sweat, you can go, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe my body is telling me something that I don't, right? That I'm not actually actively aware of. And you go, I'm going to do something different. This doesn't feel right. How do you get that? Well, they had to play the decks. Like if they weren't playing the decks, they wouldn't have learned that the red decks were a trap, right? If they only played one hand, they would never know that, but it took several hands. So the two things I'd say is you got to have the experience. The intuition comes from experience, but you can speed that process up by being aware, hyper aware of what you're feeling as things are going and listening to that. And the other thing I'd say is you got to stop telling yourself stories, right? Humans are great narrative creatures, and rather than make mistakes, we tell ourselves a story about why it wasn't a mistake. I couldn't have known, right? We tell ourselves, instead of going, "Yep, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Don't do that in the future." We want to excuse ourselves. We want to defend ourselves. We want to erase the mistake and make it a reasonable choice instead of, and like, I don't care if it's reasonable, it's a mistake, right? Like, I remember, here's another little story. I was also a theater kid. So, um, one time I was doing in college, we were doing a show, and we had the North Campus and South Campus, and we combined to do this one big show. And I had never worked with the North Campus director before. I was South Campus, so and the North Campus director was the director of the show. So I didn't know him. I didn't know his personality. And he shocked me one day because so we'd done a rehearsal. At the end of when you're in theater, at the end of rehearsal, everybody gathers for what they call notes, is where the director goes through the scenes you did. It says, keep doing this, don't do this, let's change this. Like he's adjusting the show. This is how he gives you, you write it down, and the next rehearsal you do it the way he said, and he might adjust it again, right? So this guy Brian, he did something, I don't know what he did, but Bill, the director's like, hey Brian, on this line you did this, don't do that, it looks stupid. And Brian goes, well, what I was trying to do, and Bill goes, I don't give a fuck what you're trying to do, I told you it looks stupid, don't do it again. And that was like actually a life-changing moment for me, because number one, I realized that it doesn't matter what your intention are is your intentions are, or your intention is, like, your audience, whether that be a person you're doing lessons with, whether it be a podcast listener or a YouTube viewer, it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is what they're going to take away from it. But the other thing is, it doesn't matter, right? Like I can say, like, Brian didn't make a mistake that was unreasonable. He had a belief in what he was doing. It made sense to him. His whatever he did, what he was getting yelled at for, it made sense to him. And instead of just taking the note and going, okay, it looks stupid, I won't do that anymore, he wanted to argue that it didn't look stupid. And Bill's like, I don't care what you're trying to communicate. You're not communicating that. Find another way to communicate that. He didn't say it that nicely,
Sure.
but the lesson was there is like, so when you make a mistake with a dog, and by the way, anytime something doesn't go the way you think it should, you've made a mistake. Like that's it. That's it. If dog comes up to leash you, you made a mistake. That dog who redirected on me that I talked about, the dope, I made a mistake. I didn't handle that situation correctly. It didn't go the way I wanted to, therefore I made the mistake. I misjudged the situation. My job is to make sure the training session goes according to plan, right? And sometimes the mistake is I didn't give a realistic expectation of progress,
Sure.
right? Like, um,
I didn't come
I'm
in with
not
the right
saying,
mindset or the right heart set too, right?
yeah,
Sometimes
but
going in with the wrong emotion or like, uh, do you agree with that as well?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have a rule: never train a dog when you're angry.
I
Right? If I'm in a bad mood, I'm not working with that dog that at that time. I gotta go do some self care before I get that dog out.
I would say
Right?
that again. If you're listening and you're a young trainer, this is a really difficult lesson. This should be like in your 10 commandments. Never train a dog when you're angry. One, they know, and two, it never works out great.
Yeah, because once you get in that threat response, you're looking for threats, not opportunities. Like it changes. You become a pessimist, right? Which again, emotion drives behavior, right? So if I'm feeling threatened, if I'm feeling frustrated, then I'm looking for things that are going to further impede me and cause me problems, and that's not going to make me. I'm going to view the dog's behavior in a more pessimistic attitude. Like, it's just like you have these lenses, and you know, you can't change that. You know, the more emotional regulation you have, the easier it is to get out of those states. But like what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're working with you have a technique that you use for, say, jumping up. I don't know. And for most dogs, it works really fast. Like, you're really happy with it, right? But then you get this one dog and it's not working with that dog correctly as quickly. If you don't allow for that extra time, if you are expected to work in 5 reps and in 10 reps that hasn't worked yet, you're going to be frustrated. And that's what I mean is, you had an unrealistic expectation of how this is going to work with this dog, right? And that's what I mean by unrealistic expectations. It's that you didn't allow for the this dog's psychology to take a little longer to get that. You got a dog who's more game. So you have a bunch of soft dogs, and now you got a dog who's more game. It's going to take longer with that dog for him to give up. But if you know, like, this is another J Jack thing, you know, like, that a stubborn dog is a good dog. Like, I always say, there's no such thing as stubborn. That stubborn is just another word for committed when we don't like what they're committed to, right? But
Sure.
if you get that stubborn dog, that committed dog, like the dog, when you say, "Hey, stay," and the dog goes, "I bet you can't make me move." That's the dog you can rely on, rather than the dog goes, "Fine, I won't go anywhere," right? And that's the stubborn dog who's going to say, "I dare you to make me move," right? "I dare you. Nothing you can. I'm furniture. You can't move me." That's the dog who's committed. We call that stubborn. We don't like it when they do the right thing. That's a great dog, right? So the stubborn dogs are the good dogs. Like, there was never an episode of Lassie where Timmy fell down the well and started barking and go, "Lassie, shut up," and she laid down in the corner and went to sleep. Like, what made Lassie a hero was she did things that were unreasonably brave. When another dog would quit, she didn't, and that's what made her a great dog. All heroes, every hero you learn about is someone who didn't quit when other people would. That's what makes them a hero, right? And we want to cultivate in that in dogs, not fight that, which goes back to why I don't like compulsion. I don't want my dog learning to give up when it gets hard. I want my dog learning to dig deep when it gets hard.
Chad, what kind of dogs did you grow up with?
Mutts, mostly. My mom, we had like 3 Dobermans when I was in high school. And that's one of the reasons I became a dog trainer. Honestly, all 3 of them met their demise on the road that ran in front of our house because we didn't have a fence.
All
And
three got hit by cars?
yep,
Wow. I'm sorry.
yep,
And
yeah.
you're
It
like,
was.
and you were like, enough. I'm turning my pain into something, into purpose. And you're like, I'm gonna teach dogs how to behave better, how to interact with humans better, etc.
It wasn't quite that 1-to-1, but that was a huge factor in me knowing that if I ever had a dog, it would need to be trained, right? Like, because those each one of those dogs devastated me in their own way. And one of them had made it to a certain age where I thought she was past that like I thought she knew better. Because she was like the first ones, we lost them within a year of getting them. The third one, like, she made it to 5 or 6. So like, you just she didn't know, like, we thought she knew and she didn't. And then they finally got a fence. Like, but my parents live on a big piece of property, and at the time there was nothing for a mile in any direction. Like, the only house in the middle of this long road with nothing but, not even farmland, just fields.
Where did you grow up?
In a town called Pearland, which is southeast of Houston.
Okay. Texas
Um,
area.
yeah, yeah. So, like, um, but yeah, that I was devastated by those losses. And that certainly drove me. Like, I never intended to be a professional dog trainer. I just kind of, there's a whole story about that we don't have time to go into, but I just sort of fell into it. I was supposed to be a rock star, and ended up being a dog trainer instead.
You are a
So
rock star. You're the dog you're the rock star of the dog training space.
I don't know about that. Like, I think certainly I think Jay is more a rock star than I am. But then you got to look at Ivan and
Jay doesn't
Ellis
play
and Bart.
music. Jay doesn't play. He doesn't play bass. He doesn't play guitar. He just bashes people's faces in and submits them.
Well, actually, Jay can play bass.
Can he?
Yeah, Yeah.
All right, fine. Chad, you're creating a band. Who are your other 3 or 4 only from the dog training industry?
Oh man, I don't know. That would be hard.
I got my answers. You go.
I don't know. So here's the thing. Like I know some really good musicians in the dog world, but some of them I don't like personally, and so I couldn't be in a band with them. Um, and so I couldn't put Jay in because I would have to play bass because I'm not a good enough guitar player to play guitar in a band. And Jay only plays bass, so I couldn't put him in unless because I can't sing either, right? So the only instrument I could play well enough to be in a band would be bass. So I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Ivan's the lead singer.
Ivan, can he sing? I don't know. I've never heard him sing.
I have no idea.
um,
He could sing 4-hour podcasts.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That'd be a hard one. That'd be a hard. I gotta think about that. I don't know. Like I would put Jay in somehow because I would like to hang out with Jay. Like
Yeah,
that's
I was gonna
that's
say
it.
you. I was gonna say you and Jay, Larry Crone on the drums, and then Ivan lead singer.
So you're not talking about musician ability because I don't know if Larry can play drums. You're just saying who would I like to. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, then that would be it would be me and Jay. Obviously, I'd probably grab Mark Goldberg. I don't know
You
where I
know
would
that's
put
my
him.
last name. You know I'm Andrew Goldberg.
No, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Goldberg because he's like Jay and Mark are my 2 best dog training friends, and I think I get uh Jen Artman because she's a good friend of mine too, and we like a lot of the same music. We share music with each other on YouTube all the time. So,
Chad, if you're a young trainer, who do you voices, theory? Obviously, listen to Chad, listen to Jay, listen to Larry, but who are some maybe lesser known voices in the dog training space that some of the youth should be not following but listening to?
well, I mean, my first answer was again I go back to Mark Goldberg, who was one of my mentors. But the problem with Mark is I have a great rapport with him. I can pick up the phone and call him, and we're friends. But Mark is kind of done making friends, and he's kind of
Mark is
he's I love the guy to death, but he's got several books out now, and he tends to just be like, read my book. Like he's no longer he no longer gets excited in having conversations with young trainers. Like he's at that point where he's kind of over that. So,
What's the
read
name
his
of his
book.
book? What's the name of his book?
Oh, he's got 3 of them at least. There's the big one is hold on. I think I have it right here. Yep. Here we go.
The Art of Training Your Dog by Mark Goldberg. Mark with a C, not with a K.
Yeah, it's Mark Goldberg and the Monks of New Ski. It's important that he works with them, but this is all about e-collar. This is his e-collar book. And
What do you think about low level e-collar conditioning versus kind of the TWC method? I wish if someone could ask Ivan to put the comments back up on his first episode with Larry. That's my Christmas wish.
I am huge into low-level e-collar conditioning. I love it. And I'm still angry with Ivan over that, if I'm going to be honest. Right? Because when Ivan teased that thing, what started that was Ivan made a post about somebody doing low-level e-collar conditioning, and he said, and this was advice given by a quote-unquote trainer. He put trainer in quotes. And that just like that, I took that personally because that's what I do. And he implied I wasn't a real trainer. And that just I'm still salty about that. Like, because he never backtracked on that. He never backtracked on calling on inferring that people who do low level e-collar work weren't real trainers. So, Ivan doesn't respect me as a trainer. So whatever.
The dog training space is hilarious, man. Social media is so funny. Like, we're allowed to have strong opinions. We could be friends and have strong opinions.
Sure. But the thing is, when you attack my professionalism, that's not an opinion.
You mean like kind of collectively, not personally?
Well, so listen, I try to be very careful about what I say because I don't want to inadvertently say something I don't mean. Right? Like, and if I do inadvertently say something I don't mean, I'm really quick to correct it. Go, that's not what I meant. I apologize. I said that wrong. Like, and that's all I would need to do. I didn't mean to imply that any trainer who does this isn't a real trainer. That was irresponsible on my part, and I apologize. That's it. I'm done. I let it go. But he won't even admit that he didn't mean that. So I must assume he meant that any trainer who does this isn't a real trainer, which means I do this, which means he doesn't think I'm a real trainer based on that. It's that simple.
So you guys that are like listening and you're like, what is Chad and Andrew talking about? So there's this 4-hour episode with Larry where almost half of it is the proper way to put a dog or condition a dog or lack thereof conditioning on an e-collar, right? So one of the ways is sort of like, command, e-collar, use the leash on a really low working level to just kind of introduce the concept. I call it like downloading Windows XP onto the computer, right? Getting the software program that the dog's had. And Chad, you could say it differently. Versus Ivan says, hey, if you do it that route, that way, you're actually conditioning the dog to be much more resilient to the e-collar, and you're going to have to use it at higher levels. And the dog's not an idiot. You can just kind of put the e-collar on, use it as an aversive tool on a medium to high level. The number's sort of subjective in many ways. You don't need the whole conditioning phase. How did I do it?
Yeah, so like, and you know what? Here's the thing. Ivan is correct in one aspect. Like, so the thing is, from what I can tell, and I've not had the conversation with about it, so I may be getting this wrong, but I've talked to other TWC people about it. I've had some long debates offline with them about it, and so I think I understand this. And I had a long conversation with Jay where he was defending Ivan's viewpoint and telling me I shouldn't be so upset.
Jay doesn't even use e-collars.
Yeah, but he understands it, right? So so the thing is like Ivan wants to reserve the e-collar strictly for positive punishment.
Yep.
That's what he wants to do. And if you only want to use it for only want to use it for that aspect, then you know what? He's right. He's right. If you only want to use it as positive punishment, you shouldn't condition it because you will go to higher levels. My argument is I can use it for a lot more than that. I can use it to motivate the dog. Like I introduce the collar in a completely positive way. I do an introduction to the collar where the dog is not all of the time. Depends on what my goals are. If I just want a dog to be able to walk off leash, I don't do this. But if I want to use it as a more complex training tool, I do this introduction where the dog actively has to activate the collar in order to play the game. So there's a start button. The dog. So I've conditioned the collar. I've paired it with a yes marker in food. So tap treat, tap treat, tap treat, tap treat. Right, and then I do the same thing you do conditioning yes marker. I tap. Does the dog look at me? Yes, he knows it. If I tap and the dog doesn't look at me, he doesn't know it yet. Right. So then once we're there, the dog will look at me, and I will start moving away from them and tapping rapidly while they chase me. When they catch me, the tap goes away and they get the reward. Now, one of the things that Ivan says, one of the things that's big in the TWC world is this idea that electricity is inherently aversive, that there's no way to make it not aversive, right? And I disagree with that. And maybe that's a definition of aversive that, like, a lot of trainers say anything the dog doesn't like is aversive. And I don't think that's true because, again, there's no behavior. I don't like it isn't a behavioral marker, right? If I say I'm averse to something, what does that mean? It means I actively avoid doing it. Like say if I'm conflict averse, it means I actively avoid conflict. Very few people, Jay likes conflict, but very few people actually like conflict, right? We like simulated conflict, video games, sporting events, things like that, but we don't like real conflict where like actual bloodshed could be had or whatever, right? We like simulated violence, not real violence. We like horror movies, not being chased by murderers in the woods, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. So, but but if you don't avoid, if you go, okay, I guess I'm doing that, you're not conflict averse, you just have a distaste for conflict. So aversive would mean something you want to avoid. So if the e-collar is not causing the dog to avoid something, it's not aversive, even if it is slightly unpleasant, right? Is the way I see it. Um, and that may be, again, a definition thing. I can concede the point. I can talk to them on that point. But here's the thing with this thing, when the dog realizes that looking at me causes the collar to start, you would expect to see on at least some dogs a significant reduction in that behavior of looking at me. You would expect to see have a punishment effect, but you don't. As a matter of fact, with most dogs, when you start playing that game, they get more into it, right? So, to me, the collar can be used so much broad in so much broader ways than just as a punisher. And if you want to just make it use it as a punisher, yes, Ivan has the formula, like he knows how to do it. Where we disagree is the value of using it in other ways. And that's the thing that nobody wants to have the conversation about, right? Nobody from TWC, at least, because they're very much in this is the way Ivan says to do it, and this is the way they do it. And that's fine. Again, I don't have a problem with that. I don't care how you train a dog. I don't care how this guy trains a dog. If you're being fair, kind, and effective, I don't care. You get no grief from me. I don't care.
But don't say
But
everyone
when
else shouldn't do it.
Yes, when you start saying that I am less of a trainer because I do it differently, that's when I'm going to have a problem. That's when I'm going to get my back up a little bit. And that's all it is. It's like Ivan insulted me, and I haven't forgotten it.
Don't
He
tear
didn't direct.
down my house to make your house higher.
Yes, exactly. Like, promote what you love, spend more time promoting what you love and less time dissing people you don't love.
Well, I want to
Like,
ask you
no.
one last question, but like, couldn't the same argument, like, I think we've all got this dog where it's just like a ball of energy, and you put a leash on, and the leash in the beginning is aversive, right? You're
Mhm.
taking the freedom away. But then the leash could actually become an activation tool. We're going to go with a hyper doodle to the mall, and now
Mhm.
we're having fun and we're doing field trips together. So the leash goes
Mhm.
from aversive to activating, and there's different intensities of the leash,
Yeah,
right?
so I would, yeah, so the what I would say to that, and that you're not wrong. What I would say, I'd adjust the definitions just a little bit.
The
Leash,
title of this episode is "You're Not Wrong"
yeah.
by Chad
Oh,
Mackin.
the leash is neutral. The
Then the
applications
e-collar,
are aversive or
then the e-collar is
positive.
neutral, and
Yes,
that's
absolutely. Like, this is what I say all the time. Every piece of training equipment I use, including my voice and my hands, can be used to encourage or discourage behavior. Like, there is no piece of training equipment that is in my routine toolbox that only has one application, right? I think the only no, not even that's not true. I'm about to say maybe the squirt bottle, but some dogs like the squirt bottle, so I have used squirt bottles to reward dogs who like water. So I can't even say that. But for the most part, tools are there to communicate, right? And anything that only communicates one thing is probably not a great tool to have in your toolbox, right? It shouldn't be your go-to. Like, I know there's one of the, like, I think it's Alton Brown, one of those kitchen guru guys, who says he doesn't want anything in his kitchen that can only do one thing, right? Nothing in his kitchen is single use. And I feel the same way about my training tools for the most part. Like, any tool that I use regularly, I want to be able to use to encourage or discourage behaviors. And the e-collar is no different. Like, people are going, well, don't they get confused if you're using it this way and that way? No, they don't. Not if you train it properly. Like, just like they don't get confused when I go, that's a good girl. I go, hey, stop it. Like, they get, like, they don't get confused about that difference, right? Because they're intelligent beings. They're not dumb, like you said. Like, they're smart enough to figure that out. Like Ivan says, they're not dumb. So I think it's all in how you approach it. The e-collar is neutral, um, and we can introduce it as a positive, and then we can also add the negative to it too if we want to. Um,
last question
so
for you, Chad. Why do you think you've lasted in an industry where there's so much churn?
I'm stubborn,
You're not wrong.
and 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 you know what? I don't look. Listen, I can't do anything else.
You could be a rock star.
Yeah, that ship sailed a long time ago. But no, seriously, like, I don't have. Like I don't have skills to do anything. What I'm going to do, be a greeter at Walmart? Like I got to earn a living, and this is what I'm good at. Like I'm a pretty good writer, but I write about dogs. So and apparently I make pretty good videos, but they're all about dogs. So like I know dogs. This is what I do. So like I got kind of locked into this. It used to not be so hard to like. It used to not be so shitty. Like and
How
don't
so?
get me wrong, the trainer wars have always been going on, but with social media we cross paths a lot more. Like back in the day, if you didn't go to the wrong training center and you didn't hang out in the wrong Yahoo group, you're going to be okay. You're going to be met with like-minded people, which maybe isn't a great thing, right? Maybe that maybe we would do better if we were meeting more people that had different viewpoints, but you weren't getting the brigading against your website wasn't happening. You didn't have local trainers jumping on your Facebook page and causing you grief. You didn't have any of that nonsense going on. So I think I came up in a time I was privileged enough to establish myself in a time when it was pretty easy to just establish yourself with having good work and happy clients. And now that doesn't matter as much. You do good work, you have happy clients, but you got the center down the street sending their clients to harass you on Facebook and stuff like that. I don't know. Like I think a lot of it is just like I'm stubborn and I don't have any other way to earn a living, so I'm stuck here. Like just I didn't give myself a safety net, right? Like this was it.
People are always
So
going to need help with their dogs, and they're
yeah.
always going to need experience, right? Why do people choose trainers? They want to know that this trainer's done a good job time and time and time and time and time and time again. So people could harass on the internet. Internet isn't real, but at the end of the day, the cream rises to the top. And if you point to 30 years of success, how you've evolved, and you've trained thousands of dogs, and they all look good and happy while listening, it's really hard to argue with evidence. As much as social media has changed things, evidence is so beautiful. That's my advice for young trainers: is don't overpromise. Number one, like just stay in your
Yep.
wheelhouse until your wheelhouse expands. So, and two, just point to your evidence. So, say like, I've taken this dog and I taught it 12 commands and it listens to them in every environment. I don't do behavior modification yet, but I will go to a few seminars to try to learn that. But right now, this is my bread and butter: raising good, happy puppies, and just point to the evidence. And at the end of the day, the evidence will compound.
Yeah, no, I think that's the important thing, honestly. To succeed, you have to like. So I'm not a great business person, and neither was Dick Russell. But Dick Russell taught me a lot about how to treat people. And his one of his basic rules is that if you always give people more value than they can reasonably expect for what they pay, you'll never have an unhappy client. And he had this other thing he would say, because he had this lifetime guarantee with his group classes, and that's pretty much all I did was group classes. But he said, you may have given me your money, but I haven't earned it yet. I don't earn it until that day you look down and say, this old dog ain't half bad. And that's kind of my thing. My goal with every client and it took me a long time to realize this. My goal with every client that I meet is very simply is to get the dog to a point where if that was as bad as it got, they would have never called the dog trainer in the first place. If I get there, everything else is a bonus, because my first job is to make them happy with their dog, happy enough that they want to keep the dog. The dog brings more joy than frustration. And if I do that, I have earned my keep. If I do more than that, I've given them more than they needed. And I want to give everybody more than they needed. But if at the end of the day, if the best I can do is make them go, I want to keep this dog now, I have succeeded in giving that dog and that owner a gift that is priceless.
I love that. And Chad, I would love to have a round two, maybe a round
Okay.
table, maybe a round table. I'm starting to get this hunch that once my podcast audience starts growing, I might start doing kind of like pleasant debate roundtables, and you already know who's going to be there. But Chad, I'm eternally grateful for you guys on YouTube. Chad Mackin, just like it's spelled right there. So much good content. Any final words before I let you go?
Uh, no, just I would say do right by the dogs. Like Mark Goldberg has a saying, he says, um, uh, you're writing the check, but I'm working for the dog. He says that to his clients all the time. Like, you pay me, but I'm working for the dog, and that's kind of the way I see it too. Like, I'm working for the like I'm here for the dog. You hired me because your dog has a problem. You think you have a problem, but you have a problem because the dog has a problem. If I solve his problem, I solve your problem, and that's it. Do right by the dogs, and I think everything will follow after that.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.